This is a message to all my supporters of this podcast. I'm introducing a new supporters program. You can contribute a small amount as a one-off payment to show your love for this podcast. Thank you in advance for all your contributions.
This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast, created and hosted by Mark Hayward. I'm a corporate employee with an entrepreneurial mindset. This podcast will help and support you with new ideas about business. These are my thoughts, ideas and comments. Today we're going to talk about emotional intelligence and why it's so important for you in your life and your business. Hi, it's Mark Hayward from the Absolute Business Mindset podcast. Today I'm going to talk about emotional intelligence and how it's so important for you to be able to have that emotional intelligence, to be able to conduct yourself in the right way in life and business. So the first thing is I think you need to be able to understand that when you are being overly emotional in business, that is a failure of yourself. You can be wound up by adversities, by trollers, by haters, but it's all about how you respond to it, which is the most important thing. So you need to be able to be calm and not be responding in an emotional way. So, for example, if someone is in your office who is deliberately trying to wind you up or is trying to impact you emotionally, the only thing that you can control, you can't control them, you can only control the way that you respond to them. So don't ever respond in a negative or a highly emotional fashion. So there's lots of things people talk about of being able to stay calm under pressure. So I think this is actually quite an interesting thought. So the way that some people keep their emotional intelligence in check is by exercising regularly and not being wound up, and also meditation. People find that as being a very good way of being able to keep calm under pressure. But it's all about clarity of thought as well. It's not being, when you're involved in something very deeply, it's very often your response is deeply emotional rather than being able to zoom out, which we talked about in the previous podcast. Zoom out and be able to stay calm and see the whole picture. So we're talking about meditation. There was actually I think it's Hoffman, Dr. Hoffman, talked about a breathing technique where you breathe in and out for 30 times or 25 times, just really, really big breaths and big breaths out, and then you then hold your breath out for over a minute. And then you take one long deep breath. Now, this is something I've been practicing. I only do it maybe once or twice a week, but I've found that it really is a helpful way of being able to keep calmness under pressure, keep calmness and clarity of thought. So that's one technique that I think would be useful. You can check him out online and see some more details about his techniques. Also, another technique that is good for keeping you cool under pressure is cold showers. So cold showers are awesome. There are different techniques of using it. I tend to do my shower that I need to do, like washing my hair and showering in warm water, and then I give it a blast of cold water and stay under there for over a minute. I think people talk about 3-4 minutes. It's entirely up to you, but again, it's about breathing techniques when you're in that cold shower. It's not getting overwhelmed. It's keeping a calmness and being able to just keep that breath and keep your calmness. So that's another technique to be able to help you. Slightly more on the psychological side of it, you've got to understand your motives and others' motivations. It's important to understand why people are doing things that they are doing. If they're doing things, so for example, if there's a troller or a hater online, Could be because they're a failed podcaster, or they have a deep frustration about education or learning, and they could be responding because of that. So often my technique on those sorts of things is either just respond and just say thank you for your feedback. I really appreciate your feedback. So others' motivations are a critical importance when you're thinking about emotional intelligence. And also another thing is understanding yourself. You've got to be able to understand yourself and what are your triggers and what are the things that are going to cause you more harm in the long term. Any way of being able to respond negatively or emotionally to someone's attack is often a way of being able to not being able to understand what's affecting you and what the bits are that is really impacting you. So you got to be able to understand yourself. Equally, I sort of covered this earlier, but empathy for others. People might be having a bad day, people might be having a bad week, bad month, bad year, and it doesn't excuse them for their bad behaviour, but you get a greater understanding of people if you then put yourself in their shoes. And another sort of slightly cliched is treat people how you want to be treated. So if you treat people in a positive way, the likelihood is that most people will treat you in a positive way unless they're being triggered about something you're doing or the way that you do things. The next point I want to make is people's BS. It's just like a couple of things. These points are slightly covering the same point, but I think it's important that you're not affected by people's BS when they're trying to spin you a yarn or give you a negative thing. So I think you need to be able to just appreciate that. Next point that I want to talk about is sport is a good metaphor. So I'm a big fan of sport, and if you are too aggressive or you are too over the top or make a rash challenge, a rash tackle, the metaphor for life is that you get a red card, and so that's a good metaphor. You don't want to get a red card. That will have a deep impact on yourself. So you should always be, you should always think of it as that they might be attacking you, but equally if you respond to them in aggression or high emotions, that could get you a red card. If you get emotional intelligence, I think this will actually change your life. I think empathy and ideas of being able to be love thy neighbour, meet love with, when you feel hate, meet it with love. It can be a little bit too cliched and a little bit, but I think the stories are right. It's just we might not think they are particularly relevant to the way we live life now, but I think it is important that you're able to love thy neighbour and meet hate with love. So you've got to be authentic with yourself, though, and if you're highly charged, it's just taking that step back and just taking that, I'm not going to be too affected by this person's negativity, this aggression. So it's very important to be authentic as well. All right, that is my quick plan on how to get emotional intelligence, how to be emotionally intelligent. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and your ideas about what I've talked about. You can get me on absolutebusinessmindset@gmail.com, and you can drop me an email and give me some feedback on what you think about my thoughts on emotional intelligence. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.
To make sure millions of people are getting paid on time and in compliance, ADP is staying on top of each new piece of legislation. So when it comes down to it, ADP isn't just a payroll and HR company. We're the company that helps you navigate complexity. Learn more at adp.com.